welcome. It's your boy Georgie, the one and only, what's goody? And I'm here back with a video regarding a complete beginner's guide for Tribe 9. The reason why I'm coming with this because I've seen a lot of people like come in like, okay, I don't know what to do, I don't know what characters are good, what do I pick, what do I go with? And it's also for people who want to give the game a shot, but don't know where to start. So with this, I'm gonna go over a couple things to get started into the game. Some things are like battle mechanics, stats, what attention cards, team compositions, and more. That being said, please take your time with this as the game doesn't make you feel rushed nor the necessity to have anything done. Go at your own pace. Now, first, I'm at the screen right here to show a bit of pools, right? Because you're more gonna be looking at, okay, what characters are good, what's a good way to start, etc, etc. Now I'm gonna make sure that you know that every character at the start of the game is usable and you can get through the game pretty easily with those characters. The characters we get to start the game are Yo, Suki, and Kuishi. So these are all good options that you can have at the early game and you can work really well throughout the game for the next so-and-so chapters. Now again, if you want to pull, right? You want to get your characters, you want to get your stuff done, then I would personally prefer here you have like 2 different 3 stars, which could be like Miyu, Geo, Q, Enoki, or the current rate up being Hina. These are all good options, and you would say that if you have 2 different ones at the very least, that's really good, and that's what you should go with. Now we look at roles. Roles are more like specific case scenarios because there are, for the main gist, 3 roles that you have as a character. You have a DPS, you have a breaker, and you have a support. This really depends on which characters that you have and what. But for the sake of conversation, for example, Miyu is a DPS. A DPS character will primarily focus just dealing damage, but doesn't really provide anything else for the rest. A breaker would in this case be Yo. Yo is the starting character that you get, but it adds good break values and provides enough like stagger to the enemy. Break value is basically the amount of points that you deal to the enemy that stands. If you exceed the amount, they'll be staggered. And then supports. Support characters will provide heals, buffs, debuffs, aggro manipulation, whatever else. You get Kuishi at the start, who is a healer, and that's in what role he falls. Now that being said, these are like specific roles. There are also sub roles in that, but I won't go over to that too much. But do know that these are like the roles that they're respective in. Now we also have, for characters, right? We have parries. The game is, other than like dodge enemy attacks, also allow you to like parry them. These parries add to the break value as well for the enemy by a flat amount. There are 2 parries in the game at this moment, which you should know at the very least. There's the flat counter, which you go over here. Perform the flat counter attack when executing counter attack successfully. Limit enemy actions by using attacks that will make the enemy lose their balance more easily. Now most melees have this one and consume 250 stamina. This deflects every melee hit or physical object sent towards them. So physical hit will be countered, but also something like projectiles like rockets. This is something you have to time, so make sure that you get adjusted to people, their patterns, the bosses, their moves, etc, and know what you can parry and what you can't. Most melees have this, of course, but not all. And now we're gonna go over to dodge counter. Most ranged characters have this, and this consumes more stamina. But the good thing about this costs more stamina to 625, and this affects everything in the game. Alright, so with this one, this is almost the ranged characters. This deflects everything in the game, but the flaw of that is like it uses more stamina. So make sure you know what to use when and what to use for this. And then this also really depends on who you manually play, so make sure that you know, okay, if I'm using a melee character, I will use less stamina, but I can only block like melee hits. And if you use dodge counter, I use more stamina, but I can dodge everything. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Now regarding tension cards. Tension cards can be a bit tricky. In the early game, tension cards do not matter. Tension cards they add more value and you get more like use out of it later on the game that you go. So what I do recommend for the majority of the time, right, which you're gonna be using, is Full Party, which you get for free at the start. And also depending on if you get it from Pulse or you can later buy it in the card shop, is Strike Zone. These two together work really well because this gives you the effect Unity, which the effect itself doesn't matter, but what you should know is that when granted Unity, there will be 2 types of effectiveness, and so you get more crit and more defense points. So basically more tanky, and you get more crit. This is your baseline. Other cards can be added to this later on, and this is all personal preference what you use, but later on there will be like cards that can work really well, or cards like that do more damage, etc, depends on you. Keep that in mind. Now, team compositions. And again, the base for the game, in my personal opinion, is to have, whenever you play, right, you're gonna have a DPS. So you're gonna have a breaker, which could either be Katsuki or somebody like Yo. And then you want to have a support. Support characters, for example, are Minami. This can also just be like Koichi. It really depends on what you prefer and what you have, right? But this is like your baseline. You don't have to run these. You can also just run like different sort of teams where you run a double breaker, or you run double support, or everything else that can also like function, right? This purely depends on you. But if you have something that you like, okay, I like this, I'm going to go with this, and they go for it, right? It's your oyster. Do whatever you want with it. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Then you make or break, shift away from your cards or your units as you go, right? But make sure that this team feels, okay, this is the team that I like to play, and I keep playing this. Now then again, continuing on. This is a more late game thing, but you're gonna be looking at your stats later on, right? There are a lot of stats in the game, so kind of confusing, but we all know, at the very least, we know HP, we know attack, we know defense, we know crit, and we know crit damage. Those are some things we know. Now there's some that kinda can get confusing, which is support. Support, basically a TLDR for what it is basically when you have a support. Yes, I have it here. I'm gonna quickly hop over on it. Support adds, depending on the characters, right? Support, per 10 support that you have, when you break an enemy, if you use them first and the character afterwards, after the person that has support, it gets increased on the chain skill damage. So whenever you break an enemy, you do chain skill damage per character, and this will be increased with the amount of support points the character before them had. This is a 2% increase per 10 support points, and they can ramp up. The other use of it is where certain characters get value from it. For example, in this case for Starmita, where he basically gives a damage buff to, like, you get more attack buff, to the allies based off his Inspire stacks and support points. Some other characters also have these things, so you just gotta look over and see which one do, which one don't. But they will always explicitly say that, okay, these have support points where they go to it and some don't, right? That's basically what support is. Now you have other stats as well, but this depends, right, per character. You also have damage cut rate. I'm gonna go over that real quick. Damage cut rate here. Damage cut rate decreases the damage that you take altogether from every source. So this could be like if you have this on like a tank or something, or like break. Some people just take less damage overall, which can be really good in scenarios where you're taking a lot of damage. You think, okay, I need to cut off on that, right? But again, this is for later. This is for later. You don't really have to worry about stats in the early game, so keep that in mind. And the last one that I want to go over, which you will probably see early in the game as well, is ultimate skill efficiency. Now this one goes as a bit different, where if you use ult, right, if you have ultimate skill efficiency on your substats, on your Patamons, they will decrease the amount of bar you use for your ult. This can go up to, I think, like 33%, something like that. So yeah, keep that like in mind whenever. And there are more substats, of course, that are like in here. Some are pretty self-explanatory, but if you don't understand what they do, then read the tooltip if something doesn't make sense afterwards. The main thing that most DPS characters want are crit, damage, attack, and crit rate, like the basic trifecta. But later in the game, more substats will become available to you, but this is like the baseline for characters. But again, you don't really have to worry about this later on, right? In this game as well, when you get these substats, right, over these relics, Patamons, it's always better to go for substats first and then set after, because you can always get these substats, right, on a different one later on, but you can always settle for these ones for the time being, right? Keep that in mind. Don't like chase something when you can settle for something less for now and then get it later, right? Alright, and then the last thing that I want to go over is passives. Passives are like the bread and butter of certain characters, and it can either change or unlock new playstyles for them to play as, right? A big change of that would be, for example, we can mention Yo. Yo is pretty simple in that, where his passive 1 gives him increased damage when using his burst drive. So basically, when that's his secondary, and then he ends burst drive. That like makes his primary and his strategy skill damage be increased while like the timer is up. So it gives him a little more damage increase on his passive. But for example, right, where Yo is like very handy with this also is when on the same time when he has his passive 2, it will increase the amount of HP that he recovers, right, on with the allies. This is based on his damage dealt, but he doesn't become a healer until he gets passive 2. So keep that in mind, right? But that's an example for and the same can go for Suki, where Suki, our passive 1, makes her like more of a battery, so you can get more tension, so you can use more ults, use more cards, etc, etc. But his passive 2, or a passive 2, sorry, is when she uses her ultimate, she basically gets a damage increase based on her support, which basically like an ult nuker, or just, it gives her the overall damage increase on all her other abilities. So it's something to think about. And then this can depend on character by character, because not every character has the same thing, but certain characters have like a more useful ones than others, so make sure to look at those whenever you get the chance, whenever you get to that rank. I hope this has informed you enough about any character that is currently out, and a character that you might want to play, and hopefully this can help you moving forward. This is purely for like this aspect of stats and your characters, and making sure not to the gameplay. The gameplay, just gotta feel the game out, see how it works for you, and make sure that you get the main gist of what works and what doesn't work. Now with that being said, that's Georgie. I hope you have a good one, hope you see you in the next one, and you have a good day now. Ciao ciao.